Well, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you, Henry, for your courage, telling your story and getting baptized. And I am excited about what the day holds. The challenge for me is this. Do you guys remember book reports in school? Some of you, it was a long time ago. Do you remember the groan internally when you had to do a book report? But here's the truth about book reports. You had to read one book one time and do one report one time, and you never had to do it on that book again. And as a preacher, my job is to take one book, and there's 52 weeks in the year, and to do the same book over and over. And Easter's the hardest because, spoiler alert, you guys probably know this, he rises from the dead. Amen. Yeah? And so you're like, preacher, we know the story. I know what happens. What do you got for me? And I want to tell you today that my hope is that through the next little while, that what you hear doesn't just sound like a report, doesn't feel like a report, but something life-changing. I believe, and you've been prayed for, that God has something for you this morning. And today on Easter, we celebrate Jesus. Jesus who came and lived among us, who was crucified on a cross, who was buried, and he died for our sins, and then he rose from the dead to give us life. And what I just said, that's called the gospel. Now, gospel is kind of a churchy word. You don't really hear it outside of church much, do you? And in fact, in your best Pentecostal, Baptist, Methodist, Catholic voice, the most authority you can muster in your religious voice, I want you to say gospel. I want to hear a good gospel out of you guys. Let me hear it. Gospel. All the extroverts said it. The introverts died a little bit. It's okay, you know. Gospel. The word has been complicated. It's been churched up, but the word gospel has a very simple meaning. And when Jesus talked about this, he told us to go and spread gospel. Gospel means good news, and that's it. Gospel means good news. And who doesn't love good news? I love good news. It's so fun to spread. It's so great. In fact, Amy, my wife, when we were first pregnant, our first pregnancy, I was so excited to go tell people the good news. I'm going to be a dad. It was so easy. It was so fun. It was the best. I love good news. And Jesus told us to go spread the good news. Church, believe it or not, is supposed to be a place where you go and you receive good news. Did you know that? Unfortunately, if we're honest, Christianity has gotten a reputation for spreading what? Bad news. Judgment. And judgment ain't good news. And in fact, I have people tell me if I invite them to come to church, they go, why would I go to church? I already feel bad enough about what I'm doing. Why would I go to church and feel worse? That doesn't sound like good news to me. But God called us to good news. In fact, bad news, it's just not, doesn't feel the same as good news. Amy and I, our first pregnancy that I was so excited about, that I told people about, when it became our first miscarriage, I remember going back and telling people, hey, it's not good news. It's bad news. Jesus told anyone who would follow him to go and spread good news. So how is it that we've gotten so off track that church, that Christianity, that churchianity is known for bad news? Because knowing and following Jesus should be good news. If we're all honest this morning, if we were honest, and honesty is something we do here at the Orchard, we would admit there are some things in church and with religion that don't seem like good news. And I'm going to talk about them point blank today. Because chances are you came here this morning and you believe some bad news about Jesus and about Easter. But because it's Easter, I want to give you some really good news this morning. In the book of Matthew, Jesus is preaching, and vast crowds are showing up. They want to hear him speak. They want to see him do miracles, and they show up by the thousands. But there are some people there who are not happy about it, and they are not impressed. They're the religious leaders, and they have a stranglehold on the nation's spirituality at this time. And they didn't like this revolutionary rabbi who was traveling around preaching about God outside of their nice and tidy box and all the rules that they had around it. You see, back then, just like now, religion can feel like it's a list of do's and don'ts. And perhaps that's what you've thought about Christianity. That's not good news, is it? Perhaps you come from a background where you experienced a religious some sort that felt a lot more like rules and red tape. You were taught that it's more important to follow the rules of God than to know God. And maybe when you were a child, you had questions and it was told to you, listen, you don't need to ask those questions. They're not welcome here. And whether unspoken or spoken, it was communicated to you, just be quiet and conform. Just be like everybody else. Just fall in line. But that's not what Jesus modeled for us. That's not the good news that he called us to. So if you gave up on religion or religious people and all the rules, I want to let you know you're in really good company. Because Jesus calls you to something far different than that. So when it comes to the good news of Easter, I better have something good to say today. Like, don't tell me you have good news and then serve me something rotten. Don't tell me you have good news spiritually and then burden me with a lifetime of rules, preacher. Right? Jesus came and he preached freedom. He preached joy. And finally, it got to these religious elite and they wanted to take action. So they got together and they hatched a plan. A foolproof plan. They were going to ambush him in a religious debate in public while he's talking to all these people with a complex question about the Bible. And they would trap him, and depending on his answer, they would embarrass him, and this ministry that's growing would just die out because the people would see. They would see he's a fake. They wanted to embarrass him. So in Matthew 22, verse 35, it says this. One of the religious elite, an expert in the law, the Old Testament, tried to trap Jesus with this question. Now, you gotta imagine this with me for a moment. Like, put yourself in this place. It's an arid afternoon in the Middle East. The hot sun is above, and a large crowd of locals is gathered outside to hear Jesus teach. And Jesus has been teaching, and in this crowd, there are notorious known sinners from town. There's everyday people. There's people there who need hope, people who need help. There's rich, there's poor, there's criminals, and of course, there's these religious men. And while Jesus maybe was speaking, while all eyes were on Jesus, this religious leader steps up. The crowd would have hushed. You can imagine the drama if during this sermon someone stepped up to confront me. I mean, it would be like, oh, what? This isn't how it usually goes. You see, he was going to set a religious trap that would expose and disgrace Jesus in front of all of the people and squelch this ministry. And everyone watching can feel this drama begin to brew. They're all watching Jesus, and suddenly every head swivels over to this religious leader who'd stepped up to confront him. Jesus' disciples, they've got to start shifting, like they're, oh no. What's he gonna do? One of the most powerful people in their culture just stepped up to confront their master and mentor. And this wizened law expert, about to ask his question, meets Jesus' gaze as Jesus' ministry and his reputation hang in the balance of this moment. Verse 36, teacher, which is the most important commandment in the law of Moses? Seems pretty simple. Which law, which rule is most important? You see, we think there's 10 commandments, and there are. But did you know there's 613 total laws in the law of Moses? He's asking, of the 613 in the Old Testament, which one is most important? I mean, 613, everything from like don't, have an idol, honor your mom and dad, no cutting the sides of your hair, don't eat bacon, don't wear certain kinds of clothes together, all the things, right? Which one is the most important? And although it must have been a little bit amusing from God's point of view to have someone put him to the test and ask him about a question from a book that he inspired, I believe the question's an important one today for us. You might think Christianity is just all rules. So if it is, which one's the most important? You ever thought about that? Which one would God say of all these pages? That would be vital information for you to know this Easter. I mean, honestly, if you were to leave here and know what Jesus thought, what Jesus said is the most important thing in this book, that's worth your time. Because if we're honest, there seems to be hundreds of rules and reasons to feel bad when it comes to religion. And so on Easter, we should have some good news, shouldn't we? Because if the most important rule is don't eat ham, we got to change some plans in about an hour, right? Pizza. The man, he asks this question, and all eyes that were on him immediately go to Jesus. What is he going to say? How is he going to get out of this one? Well, Jesus, he says this. You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And there you have it. The first and greatest, most important commandment is this: to love God above all things. To love God with your heart and soul and mind and being and life, to love him. But Jesus isn't done. Hold on, I have something more for you. He says this, and the second is equally important. Love people as yourself. As yourself. Jesus says the entire Bible, he says this later, the entire Bible hangs from those two things. Put these together, the central truth of God's word is love God and love people. So if what Jesus said right there is true, then what do you think the primary operating mission of every church in the world should be? What do you think every person who claims to know Jesus and claims to be a Christian, what should be the center mission of their life? Love God and love people. You see, there's some good news in here somewhere. Because if Jesus had said, if he had looked at that man and said, the most important commandment is to follow the rules, that's not good news. If he had said the most important commandment is to judge those who don't follow him the way you think they should be followed, that's not good news, and he didn't say that. Hear me today. It isn't good news that Jesus declared. Oh no, it is good news that Jesus declared. The central truth of his movement was love God, love people, and isn't rules and commandments and judgment. It's love God above all things and love people as you love yourself. This is good news today, because honestly, you thought you had to follow all the rules to be good, didn't you? Like Christianity says, I gotta follow. I have friends that say, man, I can't believe that. I can't even begin to follow all the rules. And I think we've come to believe there's like a cosmic star chart in heaven. And every time you do something good, like, he helped somebody cross the road. There's a little star. I heard what you just said. Take it off. And when we get to heaven, we'll see, did I do enough good to be good in God's eyes? And that's what we believe church and Christianity is. Some sort of star chart of being good enough. We were taught that in order to be good for God, you better clean up. You better act right. You better stop saying that and doing that. And then maybe good enough. But if Jesus is right, if what Jesus said is true, then it isn't our behavior that makes this news good. The news is good because Jesus declared it, despite our behavior. The news is so revolutionary, it got Jesus killed, just so you know. And this is the glory of Easter. He didn't stay dead. Jesus resurrected and declared that his movement, his people, would be centered around and fueled by loving God and loving people. Jesus rose to make good news available to you. And the first misconception that we often believe about Jesus is that following him is all about the rules. And here's the second misconception. Because oftentimes in a sermon like this, the most compelling reason that the preacher will tell you to believe in Jesus is what? You get heaven someday. Someday you get heaven. And sadly, what is often understood about Christianity is come to church and follow the rules so someday you can go to church forever. You can laugh. It's not good news, is it? Like sign me up. That's not what Jesus preached, not even close. What if I told you the most compelling reason to follow Jesus isn't fire insurance someday, but because of what he can do for you today, now? Because if we were honest for just a second and dropped all the, hey, we're good. If we were honest for a second, we would admit a few things. We would admit that it is today I need help. Today. If you're like me, then you desperately need some peace of mind and peace of heart. Like not just someday, forever in the future, but now I'm going through real things. I'm going through real life. I'm up at night. I'm up early. I'm anxious. I'm stressed. We're looking for something solid, a purpose for our soul today in this life. Many of us, our relationships are falling apart or broken beyond repair, and heaven feels an eternity off. Oh, what about our addictions and our secret pet sins that no one really knows just how serious they are? You see, we're desperate for freedom now, today. You see, if we were honest, we'd say, preacher, don't tell me about someday. Tell me something for now. The truth is, in our present life, with all the pain, all the stress, all the wounds, all the past, all the uncertainty, it begins to define us more than we ever want to admit. And I know this far too well. Because you see, what happens is we all have a past. And our past begins to define us. If you're like me, these 4 letters, a lot is here. Man, if we added up all the money and hours spent in therapy and getting help based on this, my past, things that I did, things that were done to me, that began to define me and tell me who I was today. And for some of us, our past is making decisions in our present for us. Our past is defining us. Our past has too much influence in our present. And if you're here today and you're like, this is great, Easter, Jesus, someday, heaven, Pastor, give me something today that has to do with this, you're in a good place. Not only our past, but then we have this word, this really churchy word that some of us, oh man, this is why people tell me, if I go in there, I'll burst into flame. You add in past, and then you put in the stuff we've done, the sin. Man, I'm feeling better already about church, right? Amen. I mean, you guys hold up a giant sign about sin. Put that in the paper, right? The truth is, based on our past, based on what we've done, what's been done to us, it begins to have something called dysfunction. It begins to impact and affect our present. And the number one growing issue in our nation, in our society, is based on those. It's anxiety. And we begin to wear our anxiety. It becomes an identity. The what ifs, the what if it's cancer, what if they're cheating, what if this, what if that. And we're just tortured by this constantly. And for many of us, the reality of anxiety is it's worse than we are ready to admit. That this right here dictates more of my energy in my day than I'm willing to admit. Panic attacks, I've been there. Fear, uncertainty, and maybe anxiety is a story that life has written on your life. Also because of our past, because of our sin, because of what's been done to us, and then you sprinkle in some personality and some temperament, and then family of origin, and you know what begins to define our life, or what can? Our anger. And for some of us, man, we know this. We have known for a long time that we hurt those we love the most because of this right here. And this has defined us. Things are good when they're good. But when our anger comes out, it's destructive. Another thing that's so common in today's world and in my life as I struggled through this, depression. And this was me for a decade. This is what I wore. This was my identity. The things I once enjoyed, I didn't even want anything to do with them. Like all the color had been drained out of life. Like everything seemed so far off. Joy, peace, contentment, whatever. Depression began to define me. And perhaps today, what you need is good news for today, because this right here, if you were ready to admit it, you wear this as an identity. And because of these things right here, in America, in any culture, you know what happens? We want out of these. I don't want to feel anxious. I hate feeling anxious. I'm sick of the depression. I'm sick of my past and the hooks it has in my present. So give me something. Give me anything. Give me anything that helps me to not feel that for even a little while. Give me something to escape. Give me a numb. Give me a fix. Give me some artificial joy. And what begins to happen is this. I soon find the things that I use to help me, they begin to own me because I want out of that. And soon I have something else. And addiction begins to be written across our life and our story. And not just obvious addiction, but I think there are places within us, private pet sins and places we're involved, that no one quite knows just how much they own us. I need something for today. I need freedom for today. As if that wasn't enough, the world we live in, I mean, we got to pay bills. We have to do our life. We have work. We have responsibilities. Maybe you have kids. They're up early. They don't care about the depression. They're up late. They don't care about the anxiety. I mean, literally, life just keeps going. And then so you have stress on top of all these things. And stress, it just leaves us with weary. I am so tired. And some of you, man, how tired are you in your soul? And finally, because we live in a fallen world, the last thing that gets thrown in here is what some of you have experienced. All of us have experienced in some way. It's that phone call that changes everything. It's sitting in that doctor's office. And I'll remember when I was sitting in a doctor's office and he used some words of a diagnosis in my life that took my breath away. And everything changed. I've been divorced. I've been through life and some tragedy. And these things hit along as if that wasn't enough. These hit our life. So preacher, don't tell me it's rules. Don't tell me it's heaven someday. Because it feels a lot like hell today in a lot of ways. And the glory of Easter is that Jesus didn't just come, die, and rise again so that we could sit in a church thousands of years later and really buckle down and try harder on the rules. And just hope that in heaven things are better, right? As we sing for all eternity. The greatest offer of Jesus has got to be more than that. You see, the glory of the good news is that when Jesus resurrected from that tomb, he didn't just walk out by himself. He brought hope with him. And not hope someday, hope for today. Because what Jesus begins to do, and he says this, he takes our past and he says, I can make things new. And for some of us, our past is making it's making decisions for us in the present, and God says it no longer has to. If Easter is truly what it is, then your past doesn't have to decide your present and future, because Jesus wants to begin writing a new story. And that's what he does. He writes a new story. However you have defined yourself or been defined, he wants to begin to write something new. Those sins in your life that define you, the things that you've done, he says this, there is forgiveness. He does not hold your sin against you any longer. And now the only struggle is, do you still hold it against yourself? But he offers forgiveness. What about anxiety? For today, what does God give us? I know this. God says this. He says, I am the God of peace, and I give peace at all times and in every circumstance. And he comes to offer us something real, something true, something lasting. Not peace based on the world having everything worked out, but peace that's a resource inside. That even when hell is breaking loose around you, heaven can hold within you. There's a resource. And what about in our anger? I know places of rage and people who this defined them, who as they've come to know God and he has done his character deep transforming work, they have found new resources of love and patience within them. It has transformed their relationships. It has transformed their marriages and their parenting, because their anger, their rage defined their relationships for so long. And God says, I came to give you patience and love as a virtue. What about depression? In these places, joy. Joy, true joy. Joy is different than happiness. Happiness is when everything around you, outside of you, is just right. That's when you take that Instagram picture of your toes at the beach. That's happiness. But no one takes a picture 3 days later of your toes at work, because that ain't happy. And the worst part about a vacation is the end of the vacation. And realizing it's 360 days till you have happiness again. Because happiness is when everything around you is good. Joy is when everything around you can be chaos and hell, but God's joy holds you within. Joy is an internal resource, divine substance. And then there's addiction, and God came to set people free. And true freedom, to set you free in those places of secret in your heart right now, that you've been wondering, how much does this own me, and does anybody know? And he says, I can set you free. Stress, Jesus said word for word, all you who are burdened and weary and stressed, come to me, and I will give you rest. He said that. He offers rest in the places that you are so frantically trying to control and hustle. And finally, in tragedy, listen, don't hear me. Don't hear this. Jesus didn't come and promise a perfect life where you're healthy and wealthy and happy. He says, in this life you'll have trouble. There will be tragedy in the fallen world, but I'll be with you in it. And in your worst moments and in your worst places, I'm going to work my glory and your goodness into your story. I'm going to take what was written on your life that was so hard, and I'm going to weave glory into it. You see, Jesus, the offer of Jesus is for today. It's for now, but don't just take my word for it. I'm just a preacher, right? I'm supposed to say these things. But I want to let you know that there are people here who know this. They know the power of Jesus. That what life wrote on the front of their cardboard, Jesus said, I'm going to start writing a new story. I'm going to do a new work. And I'm going to rescue you.